welcome to a new segment on the channel, what I'm calling Furrent Events. Make sure that I remembered what it was called. So the iceberg is mainly historical things up to this point in the fandom, and this is going to be more current events. The first thing that I have for you today is the founding of a new cooperative music label for furry artists known as Aural Alliance. This was begun by Finn, who had previously worked on Fuzznet Music, which is a now defunct music collective. Fuzznet was launched in September 2020, but it was shut down in mid-2022, with Aural Alliance launching in June of this year, or June of 2023 if you're watching this like 2 weeks after it's posted. Finn says that they didn't originally have plans to relaunch anything in particular, and it just kind of happened. And as they put it, we revamped things so vastly that it wouldn't have been feasible to redo it, but rather start from scratch. Finn provided me an interview for this video to elucidate some of the philosophy and the history of Aural Alliance so far. Finn explained that they work collectively as a label. Rather than just publishing music, its members are encouraged to support one another in multiple ways. Finn noted that there's not a competitive element, given that financially, when one artist improves, it benefits everyone involved. They told me that collabs are happening across the board, and as they put it, we work on multiple collection albums, and nearly every time people share their feedback on mixing and sound and vibes. There's lots of active looking out for each other. When I asked them about the founding of Aural Alliance, they said that they already had a lot of connections with people they made through Fuzznet, and that they were able to utilize those connections for the benefit of creating this new collective, and create it very quickly. They did. They said that it took them less than 48 hours from the idea, as in, maybe I can try this again, coming up with the better concept, and then having the first version of the site and the first artists signed on. I knew what to do and where to look, so it basically was all up and launched from the idea within less than a week. That being said, here is the roster of original artists that were included on Aural Alliance. Since then, there have been 2 waves of admissions, and Finn explained there are more to come, with the second wave actually garnering 70 submissions. When I asked about future plans for Aural Alliance, Finn told me, "We don't want to stop at just helping out artists, but the community as a whole. We have a whole new website in the works that will be open for all artists and will allow musicians to create their own profiles and portfolios with a fully fleshed tagging and keyword system, where people can then use filters and a search engine to find exactly the type of artist they're looking for, and find all the links and info about them." They also said, "We're in the process of reaching out for gigs and talking to cons about performances and IRL stuff." Lastly, they noted in our discussion that we'll be putting a big focus on ideas and projects that bring better discoverability across the furry music scene, since the biggest issue is how scattered most of it is. It's immensely hard to find smaller artists, and there's nothing for musicians in the fandom similar to what we have for art, with things like Fur Affinity and similar, so we hope to fix that. That being said, I wish all luck to Finn and all of the around about 40 artists that are on Aural Alliance so far. Judging by some of their posts on Twitter, they've been doing pretty well for themselves so far, with quite a number of releases and, again, tons of artists already signed to the label. Thank you once again to Finn for providing me an interview for this portion. Before we move on to the second story, I'd be remiss to not mention that the previous and next stories were both also covered by Soatok Dhole over on his blog, Dhole Moments, and both were in a different, more contextual manner than what I'm doing here. I'll link both of these stories in the sources, so please go check those out. The truth is, I stumbled on Soatok's post for the following story while looking for a particular screenshot that I didn't save months ago, and then found out that he also very recently covered Aural Alliance. However, I made a point of not reading either of these articles until after I had finalized my own scripts following interviews and research, because I didn't want to accidentally be copying anything that Soatok had said. It was purely a coincidence that we both covered these stories, but that makes sense as these are probably 2 of the largest stories to come out of the fandom this year. If you want a nuanced look at how both of these stories fit into a broader technological and social context, please check out his posts. The other major story, and the one that actually initiated this segment way back in June of this year, was the creation of Furforge, a new furry marketplace launched in June of 2023, with the hope of upholding the highest standards of integrity and providing a safe, inclusive space for all members of the furry fandom, according to their mission statement. I spoke with the team behind the site all the way back in June when this was intended to be a segment on my stream, but I finally had time to get all of this together. They told me that the interview was still usable, just to mention that some of the things that they said are probably a little bit outdated at this point. For context, Furforge was another project which started very quickly this year. a piece of state legislation was passed in Florida in April, which sought to bar children from partaking in what they called adult live performances. As a precautionary measure, due to the vague language, MegaPlex, a long-running Florida FurCon, decided to require all attendees to be at least 18 years of age at the time of registration for this year's convention. Due to that vagueness in language in the law, this was effectively a measure to protect MegaPlex from any potential legal threats. Shortly thereafter, Fox News reached out to then-owner of the Dealer's Den, Vitai Slade, to appear on the Fox News show Jesse Watters Primetime to discuss the bill and how it affected MegaPlex. On June 5th, 2023, he appeared on the show to provide public relations for the fandom and argue that it is, in fact, a family-friendly space. Unfortunately, the interview didn't actually touch on the state bill nor MegaPlex. Shortly after the interview aired, Slade was criticized by many users on Twitter and YouTube for the decision to go on Fox, as well as some other allegations which have been covered by other YouTubers that came to prominence after this showing. This led to the Dealer's Den exchanging ownership to Pax Ferret Novo. This also partially inspired the creation of FurForge, given that the Dealer's Den had been arguably the de facto furry e-commerce website up to this point. I reached out to Vitai Slade to ask for his side of what exactly happened with this Fox interview and the fallout thereafter. He provided me with a statement and explained that as far back as 2014, he had been providing interviews to the media with respect to the furry fandom. As he put it, all of these experiences were positive and uplifting to the community. He says that on May 31st, 2023, he was contacted by the associate producer for Jesse Watters Primetime, and he was told that the interview would be involving SB 1438 and MegaPlex. He was reassured multiple times by that associate producer that the interview would remain positive, but he was also required to remain in fursuit during the interview. He explains, "While the results of the poll had weight on my decision, I do not consider my choices to be purely democratic. I would very much like to make it clear that I understood the risks I was taking when I accepted the interview, and that I do not regret my decision. This was not decided on a whim." However, Slade goes on to explain, "To say that the content of the 5-minute live interview caught me off guard would be a gross understatement. I suppose I deserved that for trusting Fox News to give furries a fair shake." Slade denies all of the allegations which arose after the Fox News interview. He says that, as a result of the interview's fallout, the administrative team for the Dealer's Den split from him, but that he retained complete control over the company as well as its Telegram network. However, this shift in the admin team led Slade to pass the site to Pax sooner than he expected. The quotes and paraphrases here are pulled from a 3.5-page statement that Slade provided me in response to my inquiry about his involvement with the power shift of the Dealer's Den. His full statement is available publicly and is linked below. As the admin team told me, "Honestly, our entire team is makers/artists. We've used that other marketplace in the past, and even before the other marketplace's owner's actions came out, we didn't really feel that site had our best interests in mind. We had made little prototype furry networking sites in the past." They went on to say that the events around this interview and the fallout thereafter were the straw that broke the camel's back. FurForge itself wasn't in development before the news came out, and we put it together for launch in 3 days after realizing we could no longer feel comfortable as makers/artists utilizing that platform. We built it on the same coding platform the other marketplace uses. People give us hang for this sometimes, saying we copy their design, etc. They didn't make it, they bought a license to use it, as did we. Only, we're actively working on modifying it and making it better. We were going to make a completely custom solution, but wanted to get it done as quickly as possible and keep it somewhat familiar to what artists were used to. Now, more than 6 months later, the website seems to be doing pretty well for itself, with a healthy amount of traffic, listings, and sales being made. FurForge explained that they had bigger things in mind for the future. They told me, "Something big that our team feels, which I don't think has really been represented in any of our postings yet, is our goal of further advertising artists that choose to use our platform. We know ourselves that advertising your work is incredibly difficult sometimes. Social media algorithms and such kind of make it unpredictable. We have some big ideas on how we're going to make it easier for artists to get their work out there, but I don't want to spoil those ideas quite yet." The site was initially staffed by the entire team of a different website, Phosphorus, which the FurForge team explained was a passion project. They intended it to be a furry networking site. However, it ended up becoming a brand. They further explained that a user named Blush Puppy is really the main force behind Phosphor, and provided her link, which you can find here. They further elaborated that they also have 2 additional members, Aquaites and Grizzle, who together have their own studio as well. When the site was initially launched, the team explained that some people people had been criticizing them for making money off of the downfall of the dealer's den. They explained, "We're not making money, nowhere near. Every cent plus our own income is being put into advertising to promote our site and artists' work. We really just did this to help artists, not as an income. We felt we needed another option that recognized our individuality and needs as artists, and worked to address our concerns a bit more. We hope to give artists a better option, and to actually interact with our community to help them grow, and to see how their needs evolve over time." Lastly, they explained to me that one of the binding factors of FurForge is that all of the people who are on the team are makers themselves. They said, "We're not huge makers, we try our best, and I think we all do great, but we personally know how difficult it is to be a small maker right now, and how competitive it can be for any maker in the community. We really want to kind of evolve the furry community, change how it's perceived by non-furries, push artists to support one another even more, and to develop a stronger furry artist kind of community in general. On an operations level, I think it's our policies relating to transparency, morality, and to accepting and learning from feedback our community gives us." More than 6 months after that interview was conducted, the site is still running strong, with a solid number of listings available on the website right now. So that is going to do it for the first edition of Furrent Events. I would like to make this a monthly series if possible. I am only going to really delve into things that I can get actual research and or interviews about. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode, and I hope for more good news in 2023. Thank you everybody for stopping by, and this is Princess Dank signing off.